Welcome in, everybody, to the NFL preview show with Uncle Phil and Smooth Andy. Tonight, we'll be previewing Week 14 of NFL. Uncle Phil, Smooth Andy, how are you guys doing today?
Good, man. Excited. Even though I didn't play it last night, the teaser I put out hit. Teaser I hit out on Sunday night hit, and the bonus pick hit. So, look, it wasn't. I played some totals this week in my notebook. Those did not do well. The sides did. From now on, I'm going to be playing a lot more sides than totals. My hit rate's just so much higher with those. And obviously the primetime teasers, which are the crowd favorite that everybody seems to really like. And I'm sure they like it because they win at an extraordinarily high rate. So, look, I'm looking forward to this week. This is crunch time. I think of this time, that's a great thing about the NFL is that every game matters. There's no load management like there is in NBA. There's no time to take off. A lot of people don't really engage in NBA until the playoffs. Almost the same thing with baseball. The great thing about NFL is every game matters, but that intensity is really geared up this time of year. We're in the final home stretch going into Week 14. This is the last week that teams actually have buys after this. It is a fireworks show every week, and I'm here for it. Smooth Andy, how are you feeling about this time of the year? We're after Thanksgiving and rolling into the home stretch.
Yep, like I said, try not to think too much about the fact that it's almost over. But other than that, just trying to enjoy the moment.
Yeah, almost saw you wipe away a tear there. So we're good.
Well, no, I cried last night when Jameis threw that pick six at the end of the game. I mean, all I had to do was turn it over on downs, punt, anything. I didn't need any points from that drive, and they blew it. I had +6, so I was covered, and they threw it away.
Yeah, look, I did the same thing. I put out the teaser. I had obviously teased Denver down to a +0.5 point, and I had teased the total down to 35 to go over. I really thought it was going to go over. Didn't realize it was going to go 70 points over. But I came really just a hair close of putting in also a best bet of putting in Cleveland +6. And I'm like, I literally typed it in or on my phone and on the tweet, and then all of a sudden I put backspace, and I'm like, I just don't know what Jameis is going to do that. And
for 497 yards.
Yeah. Now look,
touchdowns, but 3 interceptions. So
yeah, no, he came. I think he came within 18 yards of breaking Tom Brady's record of about 515 yards on Monday Night Football, and didn't do it. But then obviously the pick sixes, the whole thing, just a really crazy deal. I mean, honestly, thought they were the better team last night. Their team doesn't always win. Certainly in that tough beat on your part that week. I think that was almost as bad of a beat as 2 weekends ago when Dallas and Washington scored 41 points in the fourth quarter to tank my over or the under in that game. So, and 4 touchdowns in the final 3 minutes specifically to kill it. So probably my worst beat of the year. But if I'd had Cleveland last night, I'd be, I wouldn't have slept well last night.
Yeah, I've had worse beats, but that wasn't fun.
No, I wouldn't think so. Well, as we get into this, just to kind of wrap up the week, last week, pretty even week. Underdogs had the slight edge, went 8-7-1, and unders had the slight edge, going 9-7 out of 16 games. For the year, though, the favorites and the overs are still up, but just barely. Both are hitting at 52%, not enough to make a living at, carpet bombing those. So, again, Vegas has got their sides and their totals set just about right. But, I'm excited to get in this week. This is the last week again. We just mentioned it. The last week that there's actually the teams that are actually on buys. This is the final week. This is the latest you can have a bye in the NFL. And then week 15 cranks up, and we have all the teams playing. Again, it's fireworks show each week, probably mixing some Saturday games, have Christmas games, all that. Just going to be a heck of a time. And then that last Sunday is just like a free for all. So should be a good time. But man, let's get into it. And we couldn't pick a better game to start a preview than this one. So I'll let you take it away from here.
Okay. Green Bay 9-3 at Detroit 11-1. Green Bay coming off the win over Miami 30-17. Detroit coming off the win over Chicago 23-20.
Yeah, in a dome, so there's no weather. Unlike the last time they played. Last time they played, you and I were sitting in a sports book in Vegas, just counting our money on this one. Really good game. Rainy. It was really our first weather-impacted weekend there. This one, no weather at all. You know me, I love weather just like you do, but none so far on this one being in dome. I've got this one. I've got Detroit -5.5, and I've got a total of 49.
Okay, you said 49 on the total, open 50.5. It is now 51.5. You got Detroit -5.5. I said -4. It opened -4, and it's at -3.5 now.
-3.5. What are your thoughts on that? On that line moving in that direction?
It's a little bit of a surprise. I would have thought the public would be, and we don't know who made these bets. Although early in the week the limits are low, so real sharp guys are going to be betting, $100,000 on a game or something aren't going to be able to bet yet, or at least not make $100,000 bet. So it could be guys who are betting 2,500 or 5,000 or something like that early in the week, and that's not anything to wag your finger at, but. Hard to know who's causing this to happen, but it is a little bit surprising to me, yes, to see people taking Green Bay. I think Detroit's very noticeably dominant team. Green Bay's a little bit under the radar, quieter. They're very good, but I think everybody would admit that Detroit's probably better so far, and they're at home, so you would think it would be a higher number.
Yeah, it is interesting. I was kind of hoping it would be, to be candid with you, because – look, at Detroit the past 2 weeks, Indianapolis, and then last week against Chicago, Detroit's not looked like the same team. I mean, they're just not. They've got injuries. I don't know what Jahmyr Gibbs was doing this week. I don't know if you even saw that. He posted something on Snapchat, and it was literally him in front of it was him in front of the of a whiteboard in their locker room, and behind him had every single audible and code name for every audible of every play that they're doing. He's literally just trying to flex on Snapchat and say, look at me, I'm presenting. And he just gave away the entire code for every protection that they're doing, that the offensive line is doing and calling. And Dan Campbell, of course, did what every good coach said. Hey, no big deal. We don't give a crap as long as we execute. It doesn't matter. He said, we might as well just give everybody the whole freaking playbook. And so, really kind of Dan Campbell-esque on that, but just kind of a weird deal to do that and not have the awareness to post. Did you see that?
No.
Yeah.
How would I see Snapchat?
Well, no. I mean, it was reported widely in the media.
Okay. Well, yeah, it probably ended up on Twitter or screen grab or something, but yeah, I didn't see it, but
yeah,
it's it's young people wanting to be on social media and flex and whatever, and not I'm sure he's embarrassed about it, and that's probably enough punishment. Plus, if you're Detroit, you could always go out and change those signals so that the other guys thinks they know what's coming and it's not. You can mess with them in reverse.
Good. Kind of late in the year to start be doing that, but I certainly understand. But man, should be a heck of a game. Look, I see this one completely different than the last time where Detroit had the advantage. Detroit It seems to be a little bit more evenly matched this time. I think that's why the line is reflecting that, because Detroit's injuries and they just haven't been playing well. I felt like Jared Goff hasn't been playing as well. I've been touting him for most of the season as an MVP candidate, and I just don't think he's played as well as he has lately. We'll see how they do, but I mean, it feels like they've got 15 people on IR on defense, so we'll see how they end up doing. Both linebackers. You've got obviously Aiden Hutchinson. You've just got some people on the defensive line that are banged up. We'll see how it goes. Injury report again comes out tomorrow. I'd pay close attention to that. I certainly will be, because I think that's going to make me look at this game a little bit differently than I did. I mean, I really thought after Detroit handled them well at Green Bay, out in the elements where they said they couldn't win, and they did it handily. I thought, this is no big deal. Detroit's going to win this game handily. I look at this game differently than I did 3 weeks ago. What about you?
I suppose so. But I just normally like dogs in a division game anyway. Just I have a lean on that normally, and we'll see. Your point about the way Detroit's played lately, that just makes me want to do it more. I'll have to look and see how it goes later.
Yeah, for me as well. But all right, let's move on, man.
Okay, first of the 1 o'clock games. There are 7 of them. Atlanta 6-6 at Minnesota 10-2. Atlanta coming off the loss to the Chargers 17-13. Kirk Cousins' awful game. Minnesota coming off the win over the Arizona 23-22.
Look, the weather on this one is 54 degrees, 29% chance of rain, and southwest winds 10 miles an hour. So really nothing that big, just kind of normal December weather in Nashville. I've got this one at Tennessee 2.5 and a total of 41.
Wait, Atlanta, Minnesota.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I skipped around. I just knew I was in sync with you tonight. All right, Atlanta, Minnesota, obviously in a dome. Thank you. My guess on this one is Minnesota 5.5, and I've got a total of 43.
Yeah, you said 43, opened 44.5, up to 45.5. You said Minnesota minus 5.5. I said minus 6.5, and it opened minus 6, and it's now minus 5.5. So,
okay. Yeah, look, I mean, this is the Kirk Cousins revenge spot, right?
Yeah, I don't really believe in all that. I think it's probably more of a homecoming for him to go back and see his old teammates and coaches. I don't really believe in the whole. It's not like they just didn't re-sign him. It's not like they
Do you think Jerry Jeudy believed it last night when he went off?
Yeah, but Jerry Jeudy got traded.
Yeah, he got shipped off, right? That's a different deal. This one was, hey, they tried to be as accommodative of Kurt as possible. They asked him where he wanted to go. They tried to get him where he wanted to go. This was a whole different deal. His wife's from Atlanta. This was very, a good thing. But if it's going to be there's got to be somewhere in Kurt's mind that like, hey, I want to show them that they should have paid me. And past 3 weeks, it's been kind of yikes for Kirk, right? Atlanta scored a total of 36 points in a 3-game losing streak. Sunday's loss was the Falcons' second of the season, which the opponent didn't score an offensive touchdown. I mean, that's just, pretty brutal. Kurt's last 3 games, 0 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Now leads the NFL in interceptions. Not really a good debut. Calls for Michael Penix have got to be getting a little bit louder in Atlanta.
Man, keep him on the sideline. Let him learn. Let him learn. Don't get stupid about this. You got an old guy at quarterback, and he can still play. He's having a bad time, but throwing him, I know Penix is old for a rookie, but I mean, throwing him in there, I don't see how that's necessarily going to be an immediate improvement for Atlanta. I mean, maybe he'll turn into Jaden Daniels when he finally gets to play, but we don't know that. keep Cousins in there. He's your best shot, I think. So
I think that I think Penix is just a better. I think he's a better version of Tua, in my opinion. I mean, that's what he looks like to me.
well, we won't know till he plays. But I mean, more importantly, what people are doing is they're coming to a fork in the road and they're going, Kirk Cousins is on this fork, Michael Penix is on that fork. I know what I get with Kirk Cousins. I have no idea what I'm going to get with Michael Penix. So
yeah, no, that's what I always thought Penix was. Even in college at Washington, I thought he was a better version of Tua.
yeah.
But we'll see. Like you said, the NFL is a different animal. We'll see how it goes. Minnesota, on the other hand, is a team that, I think people, including myself, have kind of, Sam Darnold was an MVP candidate. Not so much anymore. It doesn't seem to be the hype around this team. They've just kind of quietly gone 10-2.
Yeah.
Minnesota or Kevin O'Connell has the best winning percentage in one-score games of any team of any coach in NFL history, with the exception of whoever this guy is, Guy Chamberlain, back in 22 through 27, and then John Madden in 69 to 78. Kevin O'Connell is third, only those guys. So, I mean, clearly the guy can coach. This is a one-score game. You got to think you got to give Minnesota the edge at home in this game. How do you see this game playing out?
My first inclination is to think that Minnesota isn't playing quite as well as they were at the beginning of the year, as you pointed out, and that Atlanta just had a big face plant, especially Kirk Cousins last week. So my inclination is to think that the public is going to be looking at Atlanta and saying, they're just not very good, and they might be right. But and that Minnesota's a dominant team, but they're a dominant team that just beat Arizona 23-22. Not the one game is enough, but my inclination is to say that I think I'm going to be on Atlanta this week.
You're a brave soul.
Well, I don't know I'm going to be on it, but that's seems much more likely. I usually end up with more dogs than favorites, and this seems like a spot where people are going to see 10-2 against 6-6, and Kirk Cousins, what was it, 3 or 4 interceptions last week or this past weekend, and
four,
yeah. So my prediction is that I'll probably be on Atlanta once the numbers get shaken out, but if they don't shake out that way, then so be it. So
yeah.
And speaking of brave, the next game. New Orleans 4-8 at New York Giants 2-10. New Orleans coming off a loss to the Rams 21-14, and the Giants coming off the loss to Dallas 27-20.
Yeah, weather in this one, again, no real big weather concerns this week, at least so far. We'll check back as the week goes, but things can pop up. But right now, not so much. 42. Had a 1% chance of rain, and southwest winds 8 miles an hour. So no wind, not even really any temperature concerns. I don't even think there's a temperature. This potentially is the lowest temperature at 42 degrees. So even though last week was bad and certainly had the snow globe game in Buffalo, not so much this week. I've got this game. I've got New Orleans at -2.5, and I've got a total at 43.
Okay, you said 43 on the total. It opened 40.5. It's still 40.5. You said New Orleans -2.5. I had the wrong team favorite. I said Giants -1.5 just because I don't know. I don't think New Orleans is all that great. They're 4-8. It opened 4 and it's up to 5 New Orleans. So what I said about bravery was I might end up being on the Giants this week, although I was just looking at their injury report, and DeVito's questionable, which I'm not sure if that's good or bad. It's probably good, maybe, that he might not play. I don't know.
Yeah.
And Dexter Lawrence is out. They got about 12 or 13 guys who are out for the season, so including or out this week, just flat out. That includes their left tackle. So
yeah, let's talk about that. This is the time of year when you see teams that are near the top of the draft, and what's the one thing the Giants need the most? A quarterback, right? And there are maybe 1, maybe 2 quarterbacks in this draft. I mean, it's a weak draft. I mean, you've got Shedeur Sanders and you've got Cam Ward. And maybe if you want to take a flyer on Jalen Milroe, maybe, and there's Riley Leonard. I mean, you can do some others, but I mean, you're getting pretty far down. It's not like last year's draft. I think last year's quarterback draft may go down as one of the best ever. I mean, you've got literally 6 players. You've got Caleb Williams. You've got Jaden Daniels. I mean, Caleb Williams is a star. Jaden Daniels is a star. You've got Drake May, looks a heck of a lot better than I thought he was going to look. You've got J.J. McCarthy, looks to be Kevin McConnell's really set on him being his future. I didn't even mention Bo Nix. You've got him. He's clearly outperforming very well. And we've got Penix sitting on the blocks down in Atlanta, and seems talented. We'll see how he does. But, I mean, those all potentially could be hits. But I don't know that you feel the same way about these. But this is the time of year, getting back to my original point, is that you see NFL teams that injury reports start filling up and they just start sitting people because they're like, hey, we're done. We just want to, we're not quote unquote tanking, but we're not going to play our best players. And if you're the least little bit nicked up, oh, you got a bruise today? Oh, well, you're out for the game. We're gonna sit you out. And that's what I believe is happening in the Meadowlands with the Giants. And that's why I think you're seeing the line go the way it's going right now, despite the injury, the season ending injury to Taysom Hill as well, which is obviously a big loss for New Orleans. But I think that's what you're going on right now. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's just more that I expected the line to be a little closer. I mean, if you flip this over, it's 11 points in New Orleans. That, I don't know, if a 4-8 team should be given 11 to anybody. It's not like the Giants are winless. They lost to Dallas by 7 points last week. That's not an embarrassing loss or anything. I know Dallas isn't playing well, but they're not getting beat by 30, 40 points most of the time. And New Orleans is not a powerhouse team. So my inclination, just based on my, and I was probably wrong to have them favored. I just thought, not -3 at home, but maybe less, somewhere between 0 and 3. But you could flip it to the other side. I'm really surprised to see it above 3 in favor of New Orleans.
That's all. I'm going to go against you. I'm not surprised. At all with the spread. I'm in favor of it. Don't be surprised if it gets higher. The Giants are tanking.
Okay, well, we'll see.
Right.
Next game is Jacksonville 2-10 at Tennessee 3-9. Let's not spend a lot of time on this one, please.
All right. Well, we won't milk this one. Look, the weather in this one's 54 degrees, 29% chance of rain. Southwest winds 10 miles an hour. I think this is one of our most chances for rain this week at 29%. It's still early, but again, not very much. Again, if you like weather games, this may not be your week, but if you listen to this, you probably love NFL, and this will be your week regardless. I've got this one. I've got Tennessee favored at 2.5. I got a total of 41. I think I'm on the right game this time.
Okay. You said 41, open 39.5, still there. You said Tennessee 2.5. I said Tennessee 4. It opened 4.5. It's down to 3.5. I'm guessing that means that Trevor Lawrence isn't playing. I'm guessing.
Oh no. I mean,
I know he got blasted, and I wouldn't think he was playing, but the number shows maybe if he was playing, I think it would be below 3. But
would you really even play him the rest of the year? I mean, what's the point?
Yeah, no, I agree for his own safety, and there's nothing better for a team than Jacksonville if they were to go into the tank. And if they finish with one of the top 3 picks or something, they get to trade down and get a ton because assuming they don't want to replace Trevor, which I doubt they do, they can stockpile it. There's nothing better than having a quarterback already in house when you have a terrible record and get a top 3 or 4 pick. You can just ransom people for it. So yeah, to your point, yes. But that said, you got guys in the locker room. They're going to want Trevor playing if he's healthy because they want to go out and compete, and they don't want to have Mac Jones being the one doing it. So we'll see.
Okay. What if, just play devil's advocate, what if Jacksonville, because of Trevor's contract, like, hey, after this year, we've got so many holes to fill. Let's reboot it. let's trade Trevor, get 3 number 1 picks, take Shedeur if they end up number 1. Let's let Mac Jones finish the season, trade Trevor, get 3 number 1 picks.
All right. I'll stop you there.
No, tell me.
I think if you're willing to trade Trevor, then that shows that he's not worth 3 number 1 picks. I'll put it that way. If you're showing a willingness to part with him, then if I were a team that needed a quarterback, I'd be like, wait a minute, why would they want to reset on a college kid who has talent, but you have no idea?
Because they've got so many holes that they need to fill, and they need to fill them because they've already paid Trevor, and they can't build around him anymore because they've realized they've got more holes than one quarterback's going to fix, and it's going to be a continued spiral down.
Well, I think their problem is that they're not drafting well.
There's no question.
You should have young talent on the team from the drafts that you're making, and you're not. Yeah. That's more I'd say go trade your GM for 1 7th round pick and go find somebody else who's actually.
Well, I mean that's the word on the street is that Doug Peterson and Baalke, the GM, are both gone.
Well, so I would definitely get rid of both of them. Yes.
Yeah. So I think that's it. But I mean, if you're telling me that the Raiders wouldn't give up 3 number 1s because the Raiders are the kings of bad drafts, right? Or maybe, the Giants would be like, hey, we'll mortgage our future again because we've got everything. We've got the offensive line. We've got a left tackle, but we need weapons. We've got Malik Neighbors. We need some other weapons. But receivers in this day of age of 7-on-7 football are a dime a dozen. So we can go and pick those up pretty easy, and we just need a quarterback. So,
but I still think it's a dumb move for Jacksonville. I don't think his salary, however big it is, and I know it's a big contract, I don't think it's. I mean, you got tons of guys making that kind of money all over the league, and they're able to build with talent around them. So I don't think it's the contracts problem. And again, I think you're better off, especially if you can finish in the top, say 4. By which I mean the bottom 4 record-wise, you're going to be able to ransom that for a lot. Not 3 number 1s, but you'll be able to, maybe for 3 number 1s. Who knows? Who knows how desperate somebody would be. Yep. So you might already have that bargaining chip in your hand if the season finishes the way it looks now, and you can just keep Trevor and then get a bunch of extra picks and hopefully have some freaking competent person making them. So,
yeah, that's the key to your point. You got to have somebody competent making those. They haven't done a good job lately. Let's let that be the last word.
All right. Next is 2-10 Las Vegas against 6-6 or at 6-6 Tampa Bay. Vegas coming off the loss to Kansas City 19-17. Tampa coming off the win over Carolina 26-23.
Yeah, this one in Tampa, our warmest. Well, no, I don't think it's quite warmest weather. That'll be Miami, but next to it, of course, 73 degrees, partly cloudy, southeast wind, 6 miles an hour. I've got this one. I've got Tampa Bay favored at 7.5, and I've got a total of 45.
Okay, you said 45, open 45. It's up to 46. You said Tampa minus 7.5. I said Tampa minus 6 flat. It opened minus 7. It's down to 6.5.
Down to 6.5.
So we surrounded it.
All right. No, that's an interesting game. I certainly didn't feel like that. Look, very interesting game for this because both teams put out a lot of energy on divisional games this past week. Las Vegas getting a little extra rest in that one. How are you looking at this one? I know you look at numbers from this one, but I mean, Tampa Bay didn't look that impressive against Carolina. A little bit of it's Carolina, probably a little bit of it's Dave Canales, who was offensive coordinator for Tampa Bay last year, probably had that team pretty well pegged. And but I just didn't think that Tampa Bay played that well. Probably should have gotten beat in that game. I just didn't. I didn't see what I had been seeing in Tampa Bay lately. Teams go through ebbs and flows. Las Vegas, on the other hand, gave
Chiefs
gave the Chiefs all they wanted and more. on last Friday, on Black Friday. So, but Vegas is coming off extra rest. How do you see this game playing out? Any particular matchups you're looking at, or anything that like, hey, this is I mean, I know numbers rule what you're looking at, but obviously you always balance that with a little bit of gray matter there that you're working with, that you look at and go, hey, I like this based on that. You always kind of massage that based on your angles. Is there any angle on this game that you see or like about this game?
Honestly, I'd like to say yes, but no.
Yeah.
It's not two teams from different conferences. There's not a lot of. Last time they played, this happened. It was 3 years ago. I'm sure last time they played, right? That's 4 years ago. That's where the rotations go. So there's not much for me to see from that. It's just it's really going to just be about where the numbers are. I'd really like to get more than 7, not 6.5. So I'm going to take Vegas. I like Tampa. It might be a good bet to bet on them to bounce back. They should really be at the top of the NFC South the way everybody else is playing, but they're tied at the top, so I guess that's close enough. But be interested to see that. So what do you think?
Yeah, Vegas started 10 rookies, and they played their butts off against Kansas City on Friday. Vegas coming off a mini bye. Tampa Bay went into overtime and went a little deeper in overtime than I'm sure they wanted. So to me, that I'd like to see this number actually go up. I know it's kind of coming down. I'd love to see this number go up a little bit. I really think that Vegas is probably the side on this one, but I'll wait and see. But again, I like Vegas coming off a little extra rest. We'll see. I mean, obviously, you're taking your life in your own hands betting the Raiders these days. Not much to play for except a #1 draft pick potentially for them. But this game could be more interesting than people think.
I agree. It's not a bad one to keep an eye on, but
agreed.
Yeah, I think Vegas is for a 2-10 team. They're kind of frisky too. Actually, I think all of our terrible teams are a little bit frisky, even the Giants.
They are. I still am against you on the Giants. I still think the Giants are going for #1. They're leveraging their entire future going for that. I mean, when I saw Dexter Lawrence going to IR, I started seeing all these other people start showing up on the injury report. I'm like, okay, well, that's what's happening. You've got a bruise. You're sitting out this week. We'll try to make it without you. But we're not going to risk an injury to this team that's clearly not going anywhere when we can potentially stack our team next year and hopefully get some things going good for any team in New York besides Buffalo.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
There'll be a lot of competition for the bottom of the table this year.
No question.
All right, Cleveland 3-9 at Pittsburgh 9-3. Cleveland coming off the loss to Denver 41-32, and Pittsburgh coming off the win over Cincinnati 44-38.
Look, you called this one on Sunday. You said, hey, why is a team that was 8-3 against the spread, now 9-3 against the spread, not getting as much love as they should, constantly an underdog to Cincinnati. There they are. Pittsburgh did well. Look, this temperature is 44 degrees, 10% chance of showers, southwest winds, 12 miles an hour. I've got Pittsburgh favored by 6.5, and I've got it at 45.
Okay, 6.5, 45.
Yep.
Okay. You said 45, open 41. It's up to 44. Probably everybody who saw Jameis last night. And Pittsburgh, you said 6.5. I said 7. It opened 7. It's down to 6.5. So we're both
down to
ready.
6.5. Okay. Look, I mean, I'm not surprised it's going up. Look, they went over the total just a couple of weeks ago in the snow in Cleveland. So, this is going to be, a game looks pretty much free of precipitation. Just going to be a little cold, but 44 degrees. Those guys won't even feel that. They're used to that. It won't be a big deal. Should be an interesting game, though, for me. Look, these games always are a little bit of a revenge game for Pittsburgh. That you got us in the snow, and you kind of always got us. You always got us at Cleveland, and we're going to get you back. Man, this should be a good game. Russell Wilson this past game really turned back the hands of time. Had a 400-yard game, first one in I think 5 years. I mean, what a but again, to Russell Wilson, I know those numbers are gaudy, but I think he had like 237 yards or 247 after the catch. So his passes it wasn't like he was throwing bombs, wasn't truly the hands of times, but he was reading defense as well, getting up on the line of scrimmage, really checking off, was really just wearing that defense out from Cincinnati, that suddenly mediocre Lou Anarumo defense. I never thought I'd say that about Lou Anarumo of Cincinnati, but that defense is mediocre to bad, and I think it's bad. It's actually historically bad. We'll get into that in a second. But again, those blitzes weren't well disguised. They'd get everybody up on the line of scrimmage, but you could tell by where the safety was playing if it was actually coming or not. And Russell was just watching that the entire time, and he was pegging that, and he just ate Cincinnati alive. Just a bad deal. But man, I'm looking forward to the rematch, and any game with Jameis Winston, count me in.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
Should be fun. All right, let's move on.
Here's one that won't be much fun. Carolina 3-9 at Philadelphia 10-2. Carolina coming off the loss to Tampa Bay 26-23, and Philadelphia coming off the win over Baltimore 24-19.
You say that, but Carolina has suddenly become feisty. They've become this
team
that hey, you don't want to face right now because
you're feisty against a 6-6 Tampa Bay team. They weren't feisty against a 10-2 Philadelphia team on the road.
They were feisty at home versus Kansas City.
Yeah,
So again, this team looks different. Bryce Young looks different. To your point about why Atlanta should keep Penix on the bench holding clipboard. Look how good that opportunity looked for, that reset has looked for Anthony Richardson, and also for Bryce Young, particularly. I mean, Bryce Young, Will Levis too. I mean, so you've got all these quarterbacks that got to sit, take a breather, not so much pressure on them, where everybody was all up in arms. The media, every day was like questioning, Dave Canales, you're a terrible coach because you're sitting Bryce Young, and this is a terrible decision. You're ruining this guy, trading. I mean, it was just a bunch of talking heads that you're just like, just shut up and let the guy do his job. And what do you know? Dave Canales actually knew what he was doing. Bryce Young looks happy. Teammates look happy. I mean, those teammates look like they really like Bryce Young. Has done a great job. We'll see how they do this week. I certainly think that Baltimore's a little fatally flawed. I mean, not really going to talk about them this week since they're on a bye, but there's some things that they're going to have to clean up. We'll see how Philadelphia does coming back down to earth from playing Baltimore. I know it's a week-to-week league, but there's no question that game was circled. They were looking forward to that. This game here, weather 47 degrees, 2% chance of showers, wind southwest 8 miles an hour. I've got this one Philly favored 9.5 and a total of 47.
Okay, you said 47, open 46, and it's still there. You said Philadelphia 9.5. I said 10.5. It opened 13. It's down to 12.5.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yep,
that is a lot of points. You remember when we were just questioning if Sirianni should be fired just 2 weeks ago?
Yep.
And now they're favored by 12.5 points, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say that's probably the highest spread on the board this week. And now they're world beaters. Look, I'm not sure Baltimore is all they're cracked up to be, and I think it was a bad matchup for them. Not to say that Carolina is a good matchup for Philadelphia, but 12.5 is an awful lot of points. I think that look, I think it's going to be an interesting game. But again, Philadelphia, it's their defense that it's winning. I mean, their defense, what they did with Baltimore was just incredible. They lined up. Baltimore thought that they would end up that they would be able to establish the run, and they would be able to go to a single high safety that they had forced Philadelphia into a cover 3 or some kind of configuration where they would have to bring that safety up to stop the run, and they didn't have to. Their defensive tackles are all men, and they are stopping the run. And it was a tough row to hoe. I would assume if they can stop Derrick Henry, they can stop Chuba Hubbard. So maybe 12.5 isn't so far out. I'd have to really think that. Obviously, I'm still processing it. But 12.5 seems like an awful lot of points. Your thoughts on that, or do you just stay away from this?
No, I'm not going to stay away from anything unless I have if it's a Tommy DeVito kind of situation, maybe or Cooper Rush. At least they both played a little better than they first did.
Yeah.
But I mean, when they were looking like hell, I was just like, I don't care what my spreadsheet tells me.
Sure.
So in this case, I don't have any quarterback problems. I'll just take whatever the spreadsheet tells me.
Okay, fair enough. We'll let that be the last word.
All right, last 1:00 game. New York Jets 3-9 at Miami 5-7. New York coming off the loss to Seattle 26-21. Miami coming off the loss to Green Bay 30-17.
Yeah, this one warm weather, great weekend to be in Miami. You've got 76 degrees, partly cloudy, winds northeast 10 miles an hour. I've got Miami 6.5 in this one at 45.
Okay, you said 6.5. And 45. You said 45. It opened 44.5 up to 45.5. So you got kind of right in the middle there. Miami minus 6.5. You said. I said 4.5. It opened 5.5, and it's up to 6.5 now.
Okay, kind of pretty much where I thought it would be on this one. Look.
I'd imagine being a freaking Jets fan. Ugh.
Do what?
Imagine being a Jets fan. You go from Zach Wilson, flaming out and being a big jerk. Then you go grab Aaron Rodgers in his first year, he blows out his Achilles, and then the second year they're still 3-9. I mean, that must be so depressing.
Yeah, look, Woody Johnson still. If you look at the teams that are bad right now, it's because they've got bad ownership.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. I mean, we can get into Cincinnati's issues, but if you historically look at Cleveland, if you look at Carolina, if you look at the Jets, I'm sure could name several other teams. It is due to ownership. I mean, Arizona is not really that good. Cincinnati's historically good. You get, unfortunately, historically bad, but you've just got this transformational quarterback that should be in the MVP conversation, but is not because his team is so terrible, and Joe Burrow. But it's just, it's just Cincinnati. So, again, Woody Johnson, just not a very good owner, and it's trickled down. And I'm not sure if you had Joe Montana come in there that all of a sudden the Jets would be this great organization because, again, it seems like there's so many issues there in this one. But, again, we'll see. I mean, look, the Jets did everything they could there's no way the Jets should have lost that game against Seattle. There's no way. I mean, you have 2 fumbled kickoff returns. You return a kick for a touchdown, and you stop Geno Smith on 7 downs from scoring a touchdown inside the 1-yard line and ends up turning the ball over to you. How do you lose that game?
I know. lost a bet on that game, so I know
you and I went head to head. I got Seattle. I had Seattle on that one, but there's no way in that game until the final score that I ever thought I was going to win that game, or thought I should win that game.
Yeah, but then you also look. I mean, if you're a Jets fan, they also won. I don't remember what they traded. Maybe it was a 3, but they can win out and get Devontae Adams. That's pointless now. I mean, he might as well still be with the Raiders. You know, he's playing with a different bad team. Only somebody gave up draft picks to get him to try to salvage the season.
Oh yeah, no, that's done. No,
They've got no quarterback of the future in their in the waiting in the wings. They might have to go to free agency because they're not quite as bad as all the other teams that are really bad. So God, so bleak for that. I almost feel bad for them. I generally don't like New York teams at all, but
yeah,
gosh, it must be so bleak that the next couple of years you're screwed. So
yeah. Final question before we move on: what's your opinion of Miami now that you heard Tua on TV said time to go change some narratives? Him talking about him and the Miami Dolphins playing in cold weather and time to change those narratives, and they go up and they lay a freaking egg per their script.
Unlike you, I don't watch pregame shows, so I didn't actually see that he said that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just going to be something people will talk about until he wins one. And again, it probably has a little truth to it and probably has a little just statistical variance to it. He might have been able to win 1 or 2 of those games, but lost by a field goal or lost in overtime or who knows what. But yeah, I mean, it's just people like these narratives so they can, every time Miami goes and plays in a cold place, they get to bring it up again. It's just something to talk about. But maybe he is uncomfortable in cold weather, but who cares? It is what it is. You either learn how to play in cold weather or you just keep losing. But
they certainly look like it. They certainly fit the narrative of a team from.
And it wasn't just him that lost the game, by the way.
No.
Starters out there who probably didn't like cold weather very much.
No, I thought the entire team fit the narrative of a team from South Florida playing in the cold. And again, they did nothing to change my beliefs that they can actually do that in the future. So let that be the last word. We'll move on.
All right. First, the 4:00 window, 7-5 Seattle at 6-6 Arizona. An interesting one. The Seattle coming off the win over the Jets 26-21 we just talked about. Arizona coming off the loss to Minnesota 23-22.
Look, obviously a game, very low-scoring game in Seattle just a couple weeks ago, and Arizona came on the short end of this. Look, I sat here and told everybody a week ago, if you're not, I said, literally watch Leonard Williams, watch him. I said that guy is unbelievable, and what he do this past week, he blocked a kick, had at least 1 sack, and then returned a touchdown. The longest a defensive lineman has returned an interception in league history, 92 yards. So, and he's just unbelievable. Love that guy. This is in a dome. There's no weather in Arizona. Seattle won't have the advantage. It was cold. It was raining last time in Seattle. It'll be a different story here. This one, I've got Arizona favored by 3, and I've got a total of 39.
Yeah, you said 39. It opened 45.5. It's down to 45 now.
Wow.
You said Arizona -3.
Yep.
I said Arizona -2. It opened 3. It's down to 2.5.
Okay. Interesting. We'll see. Look, Arizona coming off a very disappointing loss to Minnesota, a game they should have won. They went 1 for 6 in the red zone against Minnesota. 6 times. Only did they score a touchdown 1 time. Obviously, credit to Minnesota, but they've got to punch that in. They punch it in one more time, that game's over.
I'll give you a quick counterpoint if you don't mind my interrupting real quick.
No, please.
If they went 1 for 6, you meant they got 1 touchdown out of 6, but since they scored 22 points, that means 22 minus 7 is 15. So they got 5 field goals. So they didn't fail to score on any of their red zone trips.
No, they didn't score. I'm talking about as far as touchdowns, and you got to be able to punch the ball in. You can't. I mean, those are such missed opportunities. And when you score 1 out of 6 times, score a touchdown 1 out of 6, regardless of your field goals, that's it's going to come back to bite you.
Well, Atlanta would have taken 1 out of 6 touchdowns and a bunch of field goals if they could, instead of all those pick sixes and everything that were getting chucked everywhere, right?
Yeah, but
I'm just saying, give them a little credit for not fumbling it away or throwing interceptions or going, get stuff.
Hey, I'm not Chase or Visa. I don't give credit.
Gotcha.
You earn it. So I'm with you on this one. It should be a heck of a game. I think this one looks a lot different than there. I feel like the total's a little high for me. I think that the right side's favored. Any final thoughts on this game?
Nope, I think that's good. It's an interesting game, but I don't have a lot of other things to talk about it.
Very meaningful game. This is the two teams at the top, right?
Yeah.
This is the
any division game is a meaningful game.
Well, no question. But I mean, this one, there's probably only going to be one playoff team out of the NFC West, right?
Yep.
And it's the winner. Just like the NFC South, because it looks like the NFC North is going to take all those 3 teams. It's going to take Green Bay, it's going to take Minnesota, and it's going to take Detroit. So you're looking at that, and probably Washington secures that other spot, that other wild card. So you're looking at one of these teams, unless Washington just goes on a complete skid, you're looking at one of these teams winning. And so all these NFC West teams, except for San Francisco, I think they're pretty much done.
Same with the NFC South. They're only going to send one no matter what. So
no question. So
NFC divisions that are only going to send one person. So that there's not much. There's lots left for the other 2. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so this is it. NFC South, NFC West, only going to send one. You're definitely sending Green Bay. You're definitely sending Minnesota and Detroit. So that's 3. One of those is going to win the division. So that's 2. It leaves you one wild card spot. I got to believe that's going to be Washington, like I said, unless they skid. So you're looking at one divisional winner. These the Rams, the Seahawks, and the Cardinals are going to be battling it out. San Francisco's just snake bit this year. They're just seem to be kind of done. But anyway, like you said, it's an interesting game. I'll be watching that one for sure. I'm glad it's on 4 o'clock. Even if it was on 1 o'clock, it'd be on one of the main TVs for me.
Yep, me too. If I had multiple TVs, it would be on one of them. Okay, 425 window is Buffalo 10-2 at Los Angeles Rams 6-6. Buffalo coming off the win over San Francisco 35-10, and the Rams coming off the win over New Orleans 21-14.
Yep, this one's in a dome, so no weather. I've actually got Buffalo favored 2.5, and I've got a total of 47.5.
Okay, 47.5. Okay, you said 47.5, open 48. It's up to 49, so pretty close. You said Buffalo minus 2.5. I said Buffalo minus 3.5. It opened Buffalo minus 4. It's up to 4.5.
Okay. Look, Rams, good. They struggled to beat New Orleans on the road. Stafford's had a good 2 or 3 games, but to me, they just don't look like the team that's all of a sudden going to turn it on here in the win. Do you have any faith in the Rams?
Well, they're in a division we just talked about. They 7-5 Seattle, 6-6 Arizona, 6-6 Rams, and 5-7 San Francisco. So they're 1 game back in their division. Do I have faith in them to beat Buffalo? Absolutely not, really. But that doesn't mean they won't, and it doesn't mean they can't. They just need to put together one of those better Sean McVay performances as a coach and his first team being ready. My inclination on this one is this is just going to keep going up, and I'm probably going to end up being on the Rams, but we'll see. I mean, what I mean is they have, even though they're not nearly as good as Buffalo, they have a lot to play for still, and Buffalo might come into this game a little bit sleepwalking because they're playing an NFC opponent and it doesn't matter as much, but we'll see.
Well, what do you think about this statement? And you're never afraid to tell me I'm wrong, and be afraid. Don't be afraid now.
I won't.
I'm going to come in and say Buffalo's overhyped. Buffalo just beat a depleted team from California who did not want to be in the snow, wasn't prepared for it. The forecast was there at first for it. But then throughout the morning, there was supposed to be no snow. All of a sudden popped up. It was going to come late. And then it was there the entire game. It was wonderful snow game. But Buffalo is getting a lot of hype and a lot of credit now for beating a San Francisco team that I don't think was that good to begin with and looked even worse during the game. You saw Brock Purdy, again, inclement weather. Brock Purdy fumbled the ball, those small hands. You saw it didn't hurt Josh Allen at all. He grips that ball like an orange, like his hands are just as big, twice as big as the ball, and he just doesn't let go of it and just slings it. Brock Purdy had a different time and a different story holding on to that ball, and I think that made the Bills look a little bit better than they should. What say you?
Maybe they're not as good as a 10-2 record implies, but I'd say they're every bit as good as a 10-2 Minnesota team. To put it that way, I don't think Minnesota's as good as Detroit. They might not be as good as Green Bay, even though Green Bay's got a slightly worse record. I see Buffalo as a potentially beatable team in the AFC playoffs. Well, I mean, everybody's beatable, but a team that might lose like in the conference championship or the divisional round. I see same thing for Minnesota. They're susceptible to slip up because they're just not that dominant. But that said, Buffalo, I mean, they were really good against Kansas City. I thought they looked great in that game. Kansas City, granted, is struggling and everything, even though they're still winning.
Everybody looks great against Kansas City.
Yeah, Kansas City's offense anyway. Everybody looks good against.
Well, I mean, Kansas City's defense too. Kansas City's they're really struggling at corner, and they're giving up the big plays. And their offensive tackles, we talked about it before. Those tackles are going to get them beat. They got them beat against Buffalo. They're kind of a mess there. I mean, but again, Buffalo's 10-2 record to me is not nearly as impressive as Minnesota's because Buffalo's division, AFC East, is just a mess.
Yeah.
Where the NFC North is actually probably the best division in football. So I'll give the edge there, but I'm with you. I won't be totally contrarian and say that Minnesota's better, but I still remember Buffalo and how they looked very pedestrian on the road when they played Houston and got shellacked by Baltimore. So I remember those two losses. I can't really forget those. I mean, everybody has losses in the NFL. It's the way it goes. But, there's something about Buffalo that, I still don't fully trust. We'll see.
Okay.
Hopefully, I'd like to see them do better, but we'll see how it goes. But let's move on.
All right. Chicago 4-8 at San Francisco 5-7. Chicago coming off the loss to Detroit 23-20, and San Francisco coming off the loss to Buffalo 35-10.
Yeah, 63 clear, northwest wind, 7 miles per hour. My guess is San Francisco minus 2.5 and a total of 45.
Okay. You said a total of 45.
Yep.
It opened 43.5. It's down to 44, or up to 44 rather. You said San Francisco minus 2.5. I said minus 3.5. Open 3.5. It's up to 4.
Okay. Seems like a lot for a team that's depleted and a Chicago team that we think is probably going to get a bump from a head coaching change, but and was playing well regardless. So we'll see how that one plays out. Obviously, the injuries. Christian McCaffrey out for the year, PCL. Jordan Mason, high ankle sprain, probably out for the year as well at running back. They've elevated rookie Isaac Guerendo as a new lead back. And I think just brought somebody from the practice squad to back him up. The defensive lineman, Kevin Givens, torn pec, goes on IR. This is a tough San Francisco team. This was their 5th straight loss without Trent Williams. We just found out after the game, Trent Williams and his wife had a little baby stillborn, and that I don't know how long he'll be out. Super tragic for him and his wife. San Francisco's not the same team without him. Not the same team without Nick Bosa either. Again, as we talked about last week, they're averaging one last sack a game without Trent Williams. Without Nick Bosa. and they're also giving up one more touchdown a game without Nick Bosa. That certainly looked like that against Buffalo. You know, I guess the only good news about San Francisco is that it's clear skies and doesn't look like it's going to be raining. So Brock Purdy should be able to hold on the ball, but I'm not sure that's going to be enough.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if Chicago won this game outright.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. And if you're San Francisco and you're a fan of San Francisco and you're just feeling like this was going to be a gravy train of good play. That, like you said, they've been snake bit. But what really concerns me is all the players they've just paid and how what that does to their cap. Like, who are they going to have to release this offseason just to be able to make, get under the cap or whatever? I mean, what how's this going to work out? They paid Kittle, they paid Purdy, I think, right? No, they haven't paid Purdy yet, have they?
No, they're going to pay Purdy probably after this year. I mean,
right.
and all indications are that they're preparing to do so.
Yeah. So, you got Ayuk, you got Debo, you got Kittle, you got Trent Williams, you got Nick Bosa, you got McCaffrey. I mean, how many huge salaries can you take and still stay under the cap without having just a threadbare other, rest of the team? I don't know.
Well, it's what we said at the beginning of the year in our preseason preview. We said San Francisco was old, they're expensive, and they're brittle.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what's played out here. Now, I couldn't have imagined, nor did I guess this at all. But after week 13, say Cincinnati and San Francisco are done.
Yep.
But we know there's new playoff teams every year, right? There's on average 7 new playoff teams this year. We know that those two teams, even though Cincinnati didn't make it last year, we sure thought they were going to make it this year. They're not going to. San Francisco is done as well. It's just
Miami's done. Cleveland's done.
Yeah.
So, New Orleans is done.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one is the Sunday night game. This is the second best game of the week. I think it's the LA Chargers 8-4 at Kansas City 11-1.
Yep.
Chargers coming off the win over Atlanta 17-13, and Kansas City coming off the win over Vegas 19-17.
Yeah. Again, should be a very interesting game matchup wise. 52 degrees, mostly cloudy, southwest winds 9 miles an hour. Basically balmy in Kansas City this weekend. This one is, I've got a guess of Kansas City 5.5 and a total of 45.
Okay, you said 45. It opened 42.5. It's up to 43. I kind of like the under. I'm not a totals guy, but I mean, neither of these teams can score, and they both have good defenses. I know Kansas City's isn't as good as it was last year, but that's an interesting number. Okay. There were no. I track on games that have a total less than or equal to 38, and there are none this week. There were only like one last week, one the week before, and then earlier in the year it was like half the games were under 38. So
right.
Everything's trending up. I guess all the defenses are tired and it's hard to cover and do all that stuff. But
it is. There's a natural bias after Thanksgiving for the totals to cover.
Yeah. So okay. That's it though. I mean, Kansas City's been struggling.
What are they favored by? You got the total at 43.
I'm sorry, I forgot. You said minus 5.5 for Kansas City. I said -5. It opened 3.5. It's 4 now. So
sounds about right. You brave enough to take Chargers in this game?
I don't know. I mean, I would be. Yeah. I mean, the way Kansas City's playing, it's a division rival. That's always they haven't. I'm not sure who they've covered against in the division this year. I'm not sure if they've beaten or covered anybody. But so that's always an attraction for me. I wish this number was higher. But the Chargers didn't exactly cover themselves in glory last week either. Neither did Kansas City, but that's been the case for like 4 weeks now. But I mean, the Chargers should have lost that game, but Kirk Cousins just handed it to them. So that's a bit of a disappointing. Well, it's a win. They won, and it was on the road, so give them credit. But they didn't look great. I'll put it that way. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But I wouldn't hesitate to take the Chargers. I'm not sure that I'm going to. We'll see.
I would have felt that way too, but after watching that game against Atlanta, it gave me a lot of pause. I saw some of the same issues that I saw the week before with the Chargers against Baltimore creep back in. against a team that I didn't think much of in Atlanta. And the Chargers, Atlanta had 10 sacks going into that game the entire year, and had 5 against Justin Herbert. So, again, half their season sack total they replicated on Sunday night, and I'm not sure if there was an alignment issue that's changed with Atlanta, or it's just that leaky offensive line that's happened with the Chargers of late, especially on the interior part. I have a feeling it's really just with the Chargers. I need to go back and rewatch that game, and will before the end of the week, and so I'll have better thoughts and theories on that.
Didn't they draft one of the 2 big tackles near the top of the first round, like Alt or the
Alt? They just got Alt last year. Yeah, he was their number 1 pick.
Yeah. So they're trying to fix the O-line, but I guess maybe it's not working.
But it's the interior of the offensive line that's a mess, and that's kind of what got them back again this week. It's when it showed up against Baltimore. It's what I was talking about, and it showed up again this past week against Atlanta in a big way. Atlanta certainly saw something on film they thought they could attack, and certainly did so. Herbert does not. Let me just go ahead and say this. Herbert mentally does not have the same makeup as Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow just gets hammered by that offensive line and stands in there and takes it. Herbert, when he starts getting pressure, he starts looking around, and he doesn't look like the same game. What do you think Chris Jones is thinking this week going into this game?
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. The Falcons, again, lost that game without an offensive touchdown given up by their defense. The Falcons had 14 more first downs and outgained the Chargers by 163 yards. It's just
bad franchises find ways to lose.
There you go. Moving on.
All right, last game is Monday night. I missed this one by a lot. It is Cincinnati 4-8 at Dallas 5-7. Cincinnati coming off the loss to Pittsburgh 44-38. Dallas coming off the win over the Giants 27-20.
I've got Cincinnati favored by 3.5, and I've got a total of 49.
Okay. You said 49 on the total. It opened 46.5. It's up to 50. Oh, okay. Sorry, 49.5. And you said minus 3.5 for Cincinnati. I was pretty dumb. I said Dallas -2. I think Dallas has been looking better the last couple of weeks. Although it was against the Giants last week, but against Washington 2 weeks ago, they were playing pretty well. Do you not agree?
Not that much better. No.
Well, okay.
Again, I think Washington had a bad game against them. I thought Washington looked more like themselves against Tennessee. But I just think Washington had a bad game against Dallas. I think Dallas was embarrassed because they just got crushed the week before, and I think that's probably what did that. I think Cincinnati's a much better team than Dallas.
Okay. I'm not saying I disagree with you, but I mean, flip this, and this is a 11.5 point Cincinnati is favored by 11.5 at home against Dallas. I'm not.
So what's the spread?
Oh, did we not do that? Okay. It opened 5 and it's up to 5.5 Cincinnati.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't get it. I've been saying this for weeks. They're 4-8. They keep losing and losing and losing, and they keep getting treated like they're 8-4. I don't understand why this is happening. It just keeps happening.
Be real interesting. I mean, Cincinnati could outscore them and do it in bunches. That defense is just horrendous. And again, Cincinnati's let's kind of go through it. I mean, Joe Burrow had past 3 games, thrown for 300 yards, 3 TDs, and the offense has scored at least 27 points 3 weeks in a row. Yet the Bengals still lost. They now hold the most record. They now hold the record in NFL history, scoring 33 points in a season. They're now 2-4 in those games. They lost 4 of them. The rest of the league is 51-1 in such games when you score 33 points. 4 games they lost by 30-plus points while scoring 30-plus points, ties the most in a single season in NFL history with the 2002 Kansas City Chiefs, which was a really bad team. how bad's this defense? Historic. 5 times this year, they've given up at least 6.5 yards per play and 35 points. That is tied for the second most in a season in NFL history. Detroit set the record with 6 such games in 2020. So they've only got to have one more game the rest of the season. They give up at least 6.5 yards and 34 points to be historically the worst defense, or at least tied for that in NFL history. This is, look, I kind of broke it down today. I mean, it is, number one, it starts with coaching. It's poor coaching. This is probably the worst tackling team I've seen on film. Philadelphia is probably the best tackling team I've seen on film. You traded off your best players. You're missing on free agency evaluations. You've missed on draft evaluations. Went back and looked. 9 of the 11 top of the last 11 top 100 draft picks were on defensive side, and they aren't developing. Again, that goes back to coaching. This is just a rough team. The Bengals are now 0-7 against teams that would make the playoffs if the season ended today. And they've allowed 36.4 points per game in those contests. The only hope that they have this week is that Dallas is not going to the playoffs. Dallas is probably not going to score that many points. Cincinnati is going to score that many points. I can understand why this is going up as we look at it. I can't imagine being on Dallas, but at the same time, I'm kind of with you. I don't know if I can imagine being on Cincinnati either.
I can imagine being on Dallas. Not that I'll love it. I never do, but I don't get it. I just don't understand this deference to Cincinnati. It's just way too high. They don't deserve to be more than, I'd say, 2.5, maybe 3 at the most. But they have a worse record than Dallas. I know records are not everything, but geez, I mean, where is this coming from? It's like it's like what I would expect if Buffalo was playing at Dallas or something like that.
Just more competent quarterback. I think that's what everybody's looking at more than likely. But I'm with you. I'm with you. Both are organizational failures, but it's a quarterback situation. But and certainly a receiver. Dak's only got CD Lamb, and he's injured. You've got Jamar Chase, and you've got T. Higgins, and and Joe Burrow is he's outerworldly. I mean, he is Joe Burrow. If this weren't such a historically bad defense, he would be in the MVP race. And it's a shame he's not. It's one of the best quarterback seasons we've seen in a long time, and he's not even mentioned in the MVP race. And he's literally the only thing he's putting this team on his back and just doing a great deal. But again, one final point about this Cincinnati defense. The only team in the NFL giving up more points per game is Carolina for the year. So, look, I mean, that just says a lot. I don't see it. I don't see what – I'm with you on Cincinnati, but I don't understand it. But I tell you what, it breaks my heart for Joe Burrow. It breaks my heart for NFL fans not to see Joe Burrow in the playoffs. This guy's unbelievable. This guy should be in the playoffs every year. Cincinnati Bengals ownership should be absolutely ashamed what they've done to this team. I'm off my soapbox on that. I'll let you have the final word, and we'll close it out.
I sadly believe I'm going to have a Dallas ticket this week, but I'm comfortable going against Cincinnati. I'm just not. I wish I had Carolina or somebody who I could, had a quarterback. I can't believe I'm saying that about Carolina, but you know what I mean. I don't believe in Cooper Rush. He has played a little better, I think, the last couple of weeks. At least that's been my visual thing to it. But I don't get it with Cincy. It's one great thing for a struggling offense is to go against the Cincinnati defense the way they are. So it's going to be the movable object and the resistible force hitting each other. So we'll see what happens. But I won't hesitate to pull the trigger on Dallas if that's what the spreadsheet says.
Okay. Well, good luck with that. Matt, I think we're done.
Good stuff. Man, I'm looking forward to Thursday night. I think that's the game of the week.
Yep. No question about it. It's going to be unbelievable, man. It's going to be an incredible game. So anyway, look, for Matt, who hosts the show, for Smooth Andy, please follow him at SmoothAndy5 on Twitter if you don't already. He's a great follow. If you like sarcasm at its finest, Smooth Andy is right up your alley. And contrarian views, you must be on board with both those because he's going to have enough to make you mad, which is always good. Which is, I think you can. It's pretty easy to make people mad on Twitter. It's just you post anything and it'll make somebody mad. But anyway, I'm at Uncle Phil's Locks. Thanks for spending your Tuesday night with us. We greatly appreciate it. Hopefully you gained something out of us talking through these games. Hopefully that helped you, even if you're going against us. We appreciate that too. We always are grateful for our people that are listening in. So guys, for Matt, Smooth Andy, I am Uncle Phil. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.